But it's all good. We're going to talk about Waldo.
Waldo. You just picked the middle name.
He went by Waldo for a period.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Ralph
This one
Waldo.
it was too fun. It was too it felt like porn.
Well, we're reading, we read Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Yeah.
Which you're right. I mean, how much do you know about the Transcendentalists?
Just a little bit. I read Walden and stuff.
Yeah. Because, so Thoreau was one of them. All these New Englanders.
Yep.
Sophia Ford.
Yeah.
Alcott. What's her face?
Louisa.
Yeah. Little Woman.
Right.
They're all buried in Sleepy Hollow, I guess.
Nice.
A bunch of intellectual people in the beginning of the 19th century. Ralph Waldo Emerson was one of the leader of the Transcendentalists, or
nice.
I think
something like that.
They solidified
He's a big
around
figure.
him. Yeah, and so we read Self-Reliance, and I agree. It was very I agree with a lot of this.
Yeah, I'm just this sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the central theses or whatever beliefs of the Transcendentalists is that the way to form the best society is through a population that's self-reliant, and then you'll get the best society. And humans are the best when they're self-reliant, and they slowly get corrupted by institutions as things as they get taken care of.
Right.
And so that's as I was reading this, I was like, yeah, this sounds exactly like Thoreau. He talks all about Thoreau has this, I don't know, we're getting ahead of ourselves, I guess, but also it's there's not too much to it.
Well, I feel like the problem is we've been reading all this stuff that is very challenging, and it's I don't really know what to do with a text that I just read it and I go that all sounds great. Yes, good job, you passed the test.
Yeah, I agree. Part of this too, we could I was thinking part of this episode could be to just reflect on some of the stuff we have read too, as sort of silly as that sounds.
Go back through the years.
Well, but we have read a lot, and we haven't really. We kind of reflect on it as we talk,
right?
But there were certainly some interesting things to discuss in here, though. But I understand what you're saying. It's not super exciting to just say, "Yep, I agree with this." But what I was going to say about Thoreau and what Emerson talks about in this essay, Self-Reliance,
right,
is this idea how luxury has kind of degraded us in a way. I'm trying to find the quote. I think it's at the end. Yeah. I'll just read this paragraph. Okay. The civilized man has built a coach, but has lost the use of his feet. He is supported on crutches, but lacks so much support of muscle. He has a fine Geneva watch, but he fails of the skill to tell the hour by the sun. A Greenwich nautical almanac he has, and so being sure of the information when he wants it, the man in the street does not know a star in the sky.
Yep.
The solstice he does not observe, the equinox he knows as little, and the whole bright calendar of the year is without a dial in his mind. His notebooks impair his memory. His libraries overload his wit. The insurance office increases the number of accidents, and it may be a question whether machinery does not encumber, whether we have not lost by refinement some energy, by a Christianity entrenched in establishments and forms, some vigor of wild virtue. For every Stoic was a Stoic, but in Christendom, where is the Christian? Where is he?
Yeah, I highlighted that too.
Classic.
That's good.
So, yeah, and Thoreau talks about similar stuff. He's looking out at some Native Americans in the winter from his house, and they're sitting by a fire in much less clothing, then he would be out
Right.
there and they're, not freezing. And he's like, what have we lost? And Emerson talks about a similar thing of how, just like the New Zealanders meeting the Aboriginals, and just how much weaker the white man is. And like you
Right.
hit the white man and he'll fall down with one blow. But, it's like civilization has this way of creating and selecting for less self-reliant people, because it kind of supplants, I guess, as they might say, nature and the selective properties of nature. Whereas, another part in this, Emerson is saying how nature it's basically nature selects for the strong and the self-reliant. But he does it much more poetically. So those were some interesting points that I think, in some sense I agree with. And Nietzsche talks about this too, of, just, yeah. I felt a lot like, oh, this sounds like Nietzsche in a lot of the parts.
Yeah. I was reading that Nietzsche was very influenced by Emerson.
I could see that.
Yeah, so a few of the big themes that I pulled out, one that I liked that was sort of a through line was a bit about sort of speaking courageously what is true to you, even though that can change from day to day.
Yeah.
And
You
it made
love
me think
that.
about Reddit, because he has a quote, and I'll bring it up. But right at the beginning, he says, to believe your own thought, to believe that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all men. That is genius. So what's interesting, to believe, I kind of paused weird there, but to believe what is true in your own heart is true for all men. I mean, that goes back to C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
In our reflection mode, talking about how there are universal ideas of good and evil.
Well, it also sounds like Nietzsche, and when Nietzsche talks about the I guess the super historian, or what, I'm already forgetting all these vocabularies, but
Oh, right, yeah.
What was it? It's the person who it's basically the Uber mensch or whatever,
Right, the Uber
Superman.
historian.
The Uber historian.
Yeah.
But it's the person that, it's like the Superman. There are individuals within society who should just follow their whim, essentially, because it's
Right.
God-given or whatever.
But I guess it's more than that, though, right? It's everybody should follow, not their whim,
Yes.
but you should believe that what you believe to be true, everyone else also believes to be true. That's the crazy part to me. That's where it comes. That's where it sounds like C.S. Lewis and the idea that we all know that murder is wrong.
Right. Yeah, and anybody that says it isn't is just deluding themselves of, I guess, what their gut is. Because that was a lot of what he kept kind of talking about is there were quotes about how, as I would think about it, your conscious getting in the way of your subconscious, and that it's the subconscious, that your intuition, that has the real truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something I was reading, I think I was just reading the Wikipedia on transcendentalism and Emerson, but that seems to be one thing that links them with the romanticists of this idea.
Sure.
That you should just follow, you should trust your intuition and trust subjectivity, essentially. It's got Humean, David Hume influences, but it is also, it's different from romanticism because there's still a emphasis on observation and, I guess, empiricism.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But yeah, it was making, yeah, sorry.
So where I got to the Reddit thing with this is I feel like it's not just C.S. Lewis with the good and evil, but this has kind of been my whole bent the whole time. So I'm reading this and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm on Waldo's side.
Yeah.
The idea of speaking what is true to you, because later on he says, man is timid and apologetic. He is no longer upright. He dares not say, I think, I am, which is the two things I want people to say. I'm always trying to get people on Reddit to say, I think. What do you think? Mm-hmm. And so he says he dares not say, I think I am, but quotes some saint or sage.
Yes.
And if I were to put a little thing, is like, or Wikipedia.
Yeah. Yes, I was reading this thinking that all of this resonates very much with you for those reasons.
Right.
And so my friend gave this to me, being like, I think you would like this. And I take that as a compliment, I guess, because,
I'm curious about that. Do you like it? Because I was reading it and I was wondering, I got the sense that you might actually disagree with at least chunks of it.
Oh, yeah? What chunks do you think I would disagree with?
Well, we've talked before about the sort of like living your conviction. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we haven't really gotten to the bottom of where Mr. X stands on that.
Well, yeah, but, I'm plausibly deniable. That's my whole thing.
Right. But the idea that what you think to be right is how you should be.
Yeah, no, yes. And you're right to say that is a region where I have to think a little bit. Mm-hmm. Because I think he isn't that clear either, because certainly he was purporting a more democratic idea,
right,
than Nietzsche when it comes to, like you were saying, it's not just there's a few individuals in society that should just follow their whim. Everybody in society should. And when I say whim, I mean instincts. You're right. That's an inexact way of saying it, but the instinct, whatever that gut feeling is, essentially, is how I interpret what he's saying.
Right.
And he is saying everybody in society should do that. However, it's clear that there are just some people that when they do that, it leads them down the path to murderous,
right,
messianic tendencies. So what do you do with that? And then it gets into this scary question of, well, does that mean that everybody's doesn't have an equal ability of attaining the same level of self-awareness and consciousness? Because I think that's sort of the logical thing. And so, yeah, if I'm squeamish about it, it's because, quite frankly, I'm just not ready to put these thoughts into the public record. Because part of it is I haven't fully fleshed them out. But, yeah, that's the main reason. I haven't fully fleshed them out, and I feel like if I'm going to say something so inflammatory, I need to be very confident that I believe it. Yeah.
I guess I'm not intuiting that you're going somewhere inflammatory, which is interesting.
Well, I know, but I could tell you it goes somewhere inflammatory.
I see.
Because it goes into the logical direction that people have, again, different aptitudes. And how do you deal with that democratically?
Right.
If everybody can't become self-aware, then how can you preach a universal philosophy that depends upon everybody being self-aware?
Yeah, I don't know. I would say writ large, I don't know that I believe that, quote, everybody can't be self-aware. When I say everybody, I mean the vast majority of people are capable of a high degree of self-awareness.
Yes, and even animals.
Exactly. I think that aptitudes are obviously different from my perspective, just looking at the world. Some people are better guitar players than others. In terms of just, some people have more aptitude for that than others. I don't think that it is pure, what's the word? Perspiration, or it's not pure talent, and I don't think it's pure practice, because there are some people who are born with perfect pitch. Perfect pitch, as I understand it, isn't actually something that you can develop in yourself truly. You can kind of give yourself like a half perfect pitch if you have the right, level of obsession to teach yourself pitches. You can kind of give yourself really good pitch memory. But true perfect pitch is a physiological thing. And not that makes you a really good musician, but that will give you an aptitude to be able to understand music much faster than somebody who doesn't have that.
Yes, I understand what you're saying, but I think it's a little bit different. Because what I'm talking about, it's similar, but what I'm talking about is like genuinely crazy people.
Right.
That it's, and I don't know if you've ever, I imagine you've talked to them, or it's just like there's no relating to them.
Right. It feels like they're in a different universe or something.
Yes. And they're, and then we could get into a whole thing about how much of this isn't caused by the present society, right? It has an ability to create psychotic behaviors. But, that's more of what I'm talking about is there's such a, this is just a weird thing about humans. It's clear that there is a reality that most people agree upon. You know what I mean? Like most people interact with a reality that a lot of others agree exists. If that makes sense. I don't know. There's a consensus reality. But there's a subset of people who have very little part of that consensus reality. And it's true. Right. It's like the truly brilliant ones are the ones that don't have that great of part in it, but are able to tell everybody that, hey, but you're looking at it incorrectly. So that's why you don't want to just put everybody into a mental asylum. But I don't know. Anyway, I'm going on a rant. But I think that's a little bit different than the perfect pitch thing. But I see what you're saying is that you can't have perfect self-awareness, but it can be learned. But I think all self-awareness
What
is
I'm
learned.
saying is that from my perspective, there are obviously different aptitudes among people for a variety of reasons. Some of them physiological, some of them background-based, some of them cultural. There's all sorts, there's trillions of variables that lead people to their skill sets as adults and what they're going to be able to get better at and what they're going to have a hard time getting better at.
Yes.
And that'll be different from person to person, and that'll also be different at sort of like large-scale groupings based on however you want to group people.
Well, and again, it is clear that all humans share an ability to language,
Right.
So, and mathematics and things like that.
Like reasoning, time perception.
Yes, exactly. Yes. But I would say the time perception actually is the big thing. I don't know. I don't know if we should go into this rant because it gets into consciousness. I haven't talked about consciousness too much, though.
Well,
recently.
he talks about consciousness.
Yeah. Well, yes, and which makes perfect sense for what he's speaking about.
Right.
But we should probably get back to Emerson. I suppose that's true. Yeah. Actually, here I have bingo. You must court him. He does not court you. But the man is, as it were, clapped into jail by his consciousness.
Nice. Oh, is this the dinner? You invite him over?
Yeah, it's saying... yeah, this is kind of a silly paragraph.
I remember I skipped a highlight on that one because it was a little silly.
Yeah, he's basically talking about... again, he is talking about just like the animal instincts and not just... And he's using the analogy of how... especially young boys, this is very I guess young boys more than young girls they're not as conscious or as early. I think girls become a little bit more self-aware earlier than boys, and he's sort of, I think, pointing to that by using them as the example. So he's saying the nonchalance of boys who are sure of a dinner and would disdain as much as a lord to do or say ought to conciliate one is the healthy attitude of human nature. A boy is in the parlor what the pit is in the playhouse, independent, irresponsible, looking out from his corner on such people as facts is past. So he's just saying, boys will say like, oh, this sucks. I hate this food or something because we take longer to become self-aware, and I think self-awareness brings politeness. You have to be conscious to be polite.
But he thinks that's bad.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
So would you say he's arguing against consciousness?
A little bit, yeah. I do. I think that, but it's not so simple because transcendentalists believe in reason, and obviously reason requires consciousness. I think.
this is why I would argue that consciousness as the hinging variable, it might be more than that. It's a little bit maybe of a similar to Marx thing. It's not like you can call everything a commodity, but that actually puts you in a little trouble with the language.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Consciousness is my commodity.
Exactly. That's a funny exchange.
You might be right.
Anyway, but I see what you mean about it kind of cutting in both directions. Because I see, he talks about how to be a man is to be nonconformist. And conforming to society is casting off of, responsibility, self-reliance, right? To rely on the self versus to rely on society, others, things like that. And so to be self-reliant is by definition to be a nonconformist within society. But to be self-reliant requires a lot of reason. You have to be very skilled in a variety of disciplines. You have to know how to make a fire and cook food and sew clothes and blah, 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 a whole bunch of stuff. And write a fugue in 6 voices. And
yeah. That's very important.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, how are you going to start a fire?
Yeah. As a side note, I have to explain what a fugue is to people who've never heard of a fugue.
Oh, yeah, you're teaching that class, right?
Test them on it.
Has it started yet?
Yeah, it started last week.
That's cool. How long does it run?
It's 5 weeks. Tomorrow we're doing medieval and Renaissance.
Nice.
Yeah.
Talking about the octaves.
Yeah, organum, motets, madrigals.
You've taught this before, right?
Yeah, it's the second time.
Okay. So is it a little bit easier now? You got a curriculum and stuff?
Yeah, it's easier the second time.
Nice. The first time teaching sucks. Or the first time you teach a class.
Yeah, well,
sucks.
It's 4-hour lectures too, so.
Yeah, wow. You're talking for 4 hours?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, my voice is dead by the end.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, I put activities and stuff in there, but.
No, but I had to give a lecture for 2 hours a week at one point, and that was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 hours is a lot. Dang. Is this like a boot camp thing?
Yeah, it's a 5-week course, so it's like music history in 5 weeks.
Right. Yeah.
So you do fun. 2 periods a week.
And this is with Barry Weiss's university, right?
Barry Weiss? Wait, what?
Barry Weiss?
No, it's not there. That would be cool. I would love it if I got a job there.
Yeah, I'm just joking.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now.
The University of Austin.
Yep,
right? That's what they call it, yeah.
So another interesting part here that I thought related to Judith Butler and Foucault, and I don't know what it is about it. I look up how to spell Foucault, and I can never spell it. And I know how to spell it, and I can't. But
Foucault.
I got the cult part. It's the first part.
Oh, the foo?
Yeah.
F-O-U?
Yeah, it's the F-O. It's the O that I always forget.
Your grandmother would be so disappointed in you. That's like French 101.
Yeah,
dude.
I know.
O
French
and
is
U.
bad.
You want to make something sound French, you add an O and a U.
Yeah. Okay, so this is related. Actually, all this stuff is related to things like it's related to the Camus about the idea of art being the truth of experience. Because when he's talking about he connects manliness to godliness, and he's talking about how speaking your truth, what you observe to be true. Observation through experience, that is being true, and then experience related to God. I think of Camus and art related to God. And so I guess like the power of empiricism is kind of shining through in the writing. And so then there's this bit where he says, every man discriminates between the voluntary acts of his mind and his involuntary perceptions. And he knows that his involuntary perceptions, and he knows that to his involuntary perceptions, a perfect faith is due. And so there's that sort of like truth of experience. He may err in the expression of them, but he knows that these things are so, like day and night, not to be disputed. So you know that what you're perceiving is true. You know that the ground is there. My willful actions and acquisitions are but roving. The idlest reverie, the fairest native emotion, command my curiosity and respect. Thoughtless people contradict as readily the statement of perceptions as opinions, or rather, much more readily, for they do not distinguish between perception and notion. And it makes me think of, Marx, Foucault, Judith Butler, anybody talking about discursive histories, because he's addressing that exact thing. The people who contradict the statement of perception as opinion, so a perception is an opinion, and they do not distinguish between perception and notion.
But do you think they contradict perception as an opinion?
I think by them saying that you can't know the truth of something, you can only know the discourse surrounding it. They're saying that it's an idea,
perception is
and that there's no difference between a perception and an idea.
Yes. I think you're right. I think he would have qualms. Of course, that didn't even exist yet. But I think he would have qualms with that.
Right. Hegel, right?
I guess I don't know how much Hegel is saying that, though. I don't know enough. I haven't read enough Hegel. I know, obviously, a lot of people that think that way, like Marx, read Hegel, but I don't know if Hegel ever really put that forth.
Sure.
I don't know. I just don't know. Another reason we've been meaning to read Hegel, but I'm just worried it's going to be really boring to talk about. It's like the times I've tried to read Hegel, it's like it's a slog. So Emerson wrote another one of his famous essays and ideas was an essay called the Oversoul. And it's getting at this idea that if you want to know the true man or whatever, the true person of a society is like kind of an aggregate of all the people in the society. And then everybody in the society has a component of this ideal man, which he's kind of calling God. Right. And so I think that kind of does get to this idea that if you just listen to your instincts, if everybody has the same sort of godly intuition, and if they just listen to them, then it will be fine. And so to your point, there is an objective though sort of criteria that everybody has. That is truth or whatever. So I think you're right. I think that stands in opposition. And I think that is this is certainly the Unitarian influence. So, all of these people were Unitarians in some way. And Emerson was a Unitarian minister until he left the ministry, and his dad was a Unitarian minister. Right. And Unitarianism is a very, I would say, ideal, optimistic religion that, kind of says everybody does have kind of an intrinsic good within them. So it makes sense that he would also have this opinion.
Right. Yeah. What did you think of his bit on prayer?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. That and his bit on travel were kind of two things that struck out to me. I thought that was funny. I want to talk about, because it's weird. So, I'm going through who. I don't even want to say his name because I don't want it to sound like I'm trying to get his attention or anything. The guy I've been listening to, Oh. Yeah.
You don't want $100?
No, it's more of just like I don't know. I don't want it to feel like I'm trying to like get his attention for fame purposes.
Right.
It's literally, though, this was making me think a lot about him, though.
Right. Why don't you just say his name? It maybe it's interesting to the listeners, and they'll go find him and think this wild character.
Yeah, that's a good point. Red Bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've said it previously. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, so I'm going through his archives, and I'm listening to Voldemort. Yeah. No, I really like him. I mean,
yeah.
But you got to be careful too. Yeah,
I mean, there's people who like Voldemort. There's bad guys, you know.
Yeah, but I don't view him as a Voldemort.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
And but I view him as kind of a transcendentalist. Honestly, he sounds very like because especially in these episodes from 2015 I'm listening to, where he's talking about just like if everybody could just be more honest, and these are exact thoughts I have too, and this is exactly what you talk about too, is that's like a large issue in society is people just are not honest. And of course, this was a big point back in the day in 2015 with the media. Trump was pointing this out, so this was on everybody's mind. But yeah, I mean, Emerson seems to be really pushing forward that idea as well. Is just to hell with even if your family thinks that you are crazy, if you are truly have a conviction that you know to be true, then you should not fear just saying it, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I agree with that for multiple reasons. I also think that there's lots of things that I have thought to be true in my head, and I come up with some argument, and then I speak it out loud, and I start to see the holes in my own argument just by virtue of the fact that I'm placing it into the world in opposition to other people and other ideas. And I think that there is like self-reliant value in speaking the things that you think to be true, because that's also how you get better. It's the same as like when people say the only way to get good at stand-up comedy is to go do stand-up comedy. The only way to get good at playing guitar is to practice, but it's not just to practice, it's also to perform. That's a huge part of it.
Well, it's to practice well. Like if you practice,
that's impossible. But
but it's like if you practice a piece and you always buzz and you never correct it, then you're going to keep buzzing the note. And buzzing for people who don't play guitar is when you're just not pressing down hard enough on the fret.
Right.
And that, but yeah, I mean, sorry. Anyway, I don't mean to.
No, it's fine. But
derail.
There are things that you need to do to get good at guitar that involve, I mean, like speaking truth, it doesn't make sense with guitar, but that involve engaging with the playing of guitar.
Well, that's the point, is don't delude yourself. If you have to really be honest with yourself if it sounds good. And yes, sorry, that was the point why I brought it up, though. Is buzzing is it's something that not a lot of people are going to necessarily notice consciously, but if you really hone in and you realize, why doesn't this sound quite as good as it should, you'll realize part of it is because the guitarist is buzzing a lot of notes.
Right.
But you have to be honest and sort of detail oriented,
right,
and sober, or whatever you want to use, whatever freaking adjective you want to use. Antushka, I don't care.
Yeah.
Oh,
you say sober as you have a whole water bottle of vodka.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm trying to get in touch with my Leninist roots.
Nice. So prayer. This is kind of an interesting thing because he talks about how prayer is a good thing, provided that what you're praying for is virtuous, is virtuous in the truest total sense of virtue, i.e., God being virtue and the source of virtue. And so he talks about prayer as a means to effect a private end is meanness and theft. So if you're praying to achieve some goal of yours, or like, I want a new shovel for Christmas, that is theft.
Which honestly almost made me interpret it as like, you shouldn't pray because you shouldn't ever need to talk to God.
Right.
I don't know. Did you get that impression?
Well, Maybe. I think it's more that once you are right with God, all action is prayer because all action is in service of virtue.
Right.
Or something like
Right.
that. Because I think he says, as soon as the man is one with God, he will not beg. He will then see prayer in all his action. The prayer of the farmer kneeling in his field to weed it. The prayer of the rower kneeling with a stroke of his oar. The prayer of the guitarist carefully avoiding buzzes.
Yeah, I mean, Thoreau has a similar quote in Walden,
Right.
I think, when he's talking about going and getting water. Because the other thing that was highly influential of all these guys was Hinduism and the Bhagavad Gita.
Right.
But yeah, what do you think about that conception?
I don't know
of
what
prayer?
I think about that.
Do you pray, Antushka?
No, I do not. Well, apparently, maybe, if I
What? Oh, yeah.
am engaged in an activity in truth.
You look pretty divine when I see you up there on the stage playing
That's
that
right.
heater.
Yeah. Good. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Why can't we not be sober?
Nice. Oh, yeah, he says a perfect circle in here, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't believe
saw
in that.
Yeah. And then what about the travel bit?
So the travel bit was funny too, basically saying you shouldn't travel for amusement, which is something I I don't know if I kind of agree, and also that you know the people that have made a real impact have sort of stayed where they were born and tried to make that and do their work there.
Right.
Yeah. You know, he was saying how, like, if you study the people of Rome and Italy or whatever, that they made their regions axes. It's like you should be, if you're truly great, you should be able to do the great thing where you're growing up or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But he also, he talks about how, you know, obviously you need to travel. Oh, yeah, and then if you travel, though, you should do so as a sovereign.
Yeah. Of course.
Which, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not very fun, if I'm being honest. It's the other vibe I got from Henry David Thoreau is just like, it's a little austere.
Well, they're Puritans. What do you expect?
Right.
I mean, they're of
And
Puritan stock.
For me, it's like I'm too much of I like being a degenerate musician. Too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, which is why your ancestors stayed in Europe and just prattled around. Well, theirs came to the New World
Right.
to get some work done.
They might be correct. Waldo might be right here about this travel bit,
Yeah.
but I don't want it. I like the travel for
Yeah.
for
No,
fun.
I mean,
I like
feel
going
this-
out, you know, like that.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff.
No, it's funny. I hate traveling, so this
Right.
is why it's like. And again, I think this is why my friend sent it to me because he was reading it and realized that I think I embody a lot of these attributes without
I think that's true.
realizing it.
Right. You're
Because I
very
didn't really know anything.
virtuous.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, because I hate traveling.
Right.
But that's part of it. Is I just hate flying because I do like getting
Yeah,
out.
I mean, I
you
also
know.
don't like flying. But
Yeah, I know what you mean about that. Who cares though? What are we talking about? Now I'm just talking about.
why are we
myself.
talking about this? Because it's the topic of the
No,
book.
I know,
or
but I
the-
feel like I'm being what you call it? I'm being a douche. I'm being a douche.
Oh,
Yeah.
I hadn't noticed.
Well, you're just you're so used to it.
Yeah, right. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. Anything else you wanted to hit on this? We could do our little recollection of past
Yeah, I
works.
don't think too. No, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is not a 100th episode. It's not a 2-year fun party one. But why not? What do you think of everything we've read?
I'm feeling reflective. I'm sitting here in my childhood
Yeah, I
house,
get it.
which is going to get sold soon.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah. But it's time, Antushka. We got to rip off these Band-Aids.
You're telling me it's time? Okay.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So where did this all start? Doctors.
Doctor's 1989.
Yeah, medical history.
Yeah, hang on. Sorry. I don't want to eat in the...
Okay, I'll just keep talking. Mr. X is eating, and so I'm just filling time for him. And he's drinking. Yeah, he's really munching away there. It looks delicious, by the way. Yeah, anybody listening, you can't see, but his snack looks delicious. Nuts or something like that?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, no, we started with that, and yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of with you, though. I think I've just confused myself more with the podcast.
I think that a few things have crystallized to me, and it was something I was kind of pushing on on Reddit, I don't know, several months ago. But I think that there are some very deep divisions in philosophical thinking and the way that people perceive the world. And one of those is part of what we were talking about today, about the division between like Emerson, and I would put Hoppe in this same category of sort of a belief in the ability to perceive a real world. Or a truth or something like that. Maybe a real world is not a good way of putting it, but a truth. Versus the like deconstructionists and postmodernists who are dealing in a highly relative framework where sort of everything is contextual rather than based on any kind of groundwork.
Yes.
And I see that as a true philosophical division.
Yeah. And it's interesting because they both, I think the other side is trying to destroy civilization.
Yeah, I think that's true. Which, actually, in a way, they're both right, given what each of them thinks civilization is.
I agree.
Like, each one kind of is trying to destroy the other one.
Yeah. Yeah. But, in some ways, I almost think that I guess we could say the Judith Butler, Foucault, postmodern,
right,
I guess, philosophical thinking is almost more of an outgrowth of civilization than the Hoppe and maybe even Emerson philosophy. Because it does feel like, and they kind of talk about this, or Emerson talks about this, how it's a philosophy, a communal philosophy is one that's going to come out of a people that have become less self-reliant because of the luxuries of civilization.
Right.
Because you're going to be dependent upon more people. Yep. So, of course, you're going to develop a philosophy that, deals with that.
Right.
And yeah, like if I had some kind of disease that made me very dependent upon the healthcare system, I'm going to be very pro
supportive
whatever.
Of it.
Whatever makes that happen, because it makes sense. It's self-preservation.
Right.
So I think that's the fundamental issue, though, is that there is a diversity of people who have varying levels of self-reliance, like just physical inhibitions that make them more or less self-reliant upon stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that? But yeah, I mean, that's the divide.
I think that Nietzsche gets at that divide in a different way, but I think it's the same divide that Nietzsche is talking about when he's talking about what is the name? I can't remember the name he uses for like the Romans who focus on self-development, but then there's the resentment philosophy.
Oh, the noble.
The noble. And so I feel like what Hoppe is calling the conservative perspective, and what Emerson is a proponent of, is essentially sort of like conservative is is related, at least, and maybe is directly Nietzsche's noble philosophy or way of living. And then when you're saying that that Foucault and Butler are sort of in line with where civilization has gone, that's also completely in line with Nietzsche, because he talks about how the resentment perspective has taken over and essentially crafted and shaped all of what we know to be modern Western society.
Yes. Yeah, although I guess a point could be made to say that maybe the noble philosophy only had to exist first. You needed those people the kings.
Right. But that's actually what Marx and Marcuse say too.
Right.
Because left-wing perspective is always revolutionary against an existing conservative structure.
Right.
So ultimately, yeah, they all agree. And it's probably, they're all just saying, like all of these things, as you say, just equal consciousness.
Yeah, kind of. I think so.
I mean, I don't get what I just said, but everything up until then I get.
Well, it's the idea that it's not that they all get a consciousness, but it's that they deal with it differently.
Right.
So I think the noble philosophy maybe leans away from it, and it's more instinctual and more sort of transcendental and stuff like that. But you're right; it's not an easy thing, because I talk about how I feel like I have transcendental attributes, but I do think I lean into consciousness a lot and have some Foucault and Judith Butler tendencies because of that. Yeah, because I think that's what the podcast has really made me more emboldened with, is that I mean, there aren't any answers in some sense.
Right.
Everybody's right.
Emerson would like that.
No, yeah, of course not. But it's yeah, I guess it's a nihilistic transcendentalism, you could say.
That doesn't sound good.
Well, there's transcending in it.
Well, I guess like Buddhism is sort of like nihilistic transcendentalism.
Yeah, maybe.
What?
Maybe. You might be right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just funny to think of Buddhism as demonic still. I know that it's, you're plenty used to it, but yeah. Or satanic.
Satanic, yeah. But okay, if I call anything satanic, I actually don't mean I think it's bad. I just mean with respect to like a Christian opposite.
Well, and you don't call it that. I mean, other people call it
I do call it satanic sometimes because I'm thinking about it. If I'm thinking about what the meaning of Christianity is, then sure, Buddhism is satanic.
Right.
But I might be on the Buddhism side. Like, I like the old Bill Hicks bit about, I would rather go to hell, that's where all the good music is.
Yeah, the 4-bar blues.
Right, all of it.
The 4-bar blues.
Yeah.
The 12-bar blues.
Yeah.
What the hell is wrong
I have a
with
song
that?
that's an 8-bar blues, and my bass player is constantly arguing with me that there's no such thing.
That's hilarious. And you say, you got to take the Emerson route and be like, I know what's true.
Right. I mean, this is essentially what I say.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not a 12-bar blues, but I mean, what the hell is the blues, man?
Yeah.
What is the blues?
That's a great question. We could read. Actually, I have a book called "What Is the Blues." We could read that.
Yeah, maybe. I'm like so because where I grew up and everything. I'm kind of tired of the blues.
Right.
Everybody in my family listens to the blues. I grew up on the blues. I got the blues.
You got the blues.
I'm tired of the blues.
But the blues is a lot, man. The blues is a lot more than 12-bar stuff.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Buddy Guy.
Right. Sure.
Buddy Guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Bad Guy by Billie Eilish is a blues.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I recently wrote a 12-bar blues, but it's very slow.
Oh, so silly.
Yeah.
Nice. No, that's
ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know though. So I was thinking about what to read next. We've talked about doing like a doctor.
Oh, right.
Thing
like insurance
billing. A history of Western medical pay, basically. How has the payment system developed in the West, and how do we get to this monstrosity? I haven't had time to look for any books yet. If any listeners have any recommendations.
We have an email address that people are constantly emailing. So make sure to email us early.
It's kind of
so
ridiculous.
that you can get in.
But I was also thinking Rousseau.
Sure.
It's a social contract.
Sure. Yeah.
Are you man enough for that?
Yeah. I think I'm gonna be annoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, Rousseau, Voltaire, they're all the same.
They're all the same. I like some Voltaire.
Wow. I'm surprised.
He's fun sometimes.
That's a funny thing about, I think it's Emerson, is that he was like, they wanted him, he was in France, he was traveling Europe, and he was in France, and he had to be goaded to see Voltaire's tomb because he just didn't want to. I guess he doesn't like Voltaire.
Nice. I know a lot of people who like really don't like Voltaire, like in person. They like hate him.
Are they, would you say they're on the right?
No, I'd say they're on the left.
That's interesting. Because my understanding of Voltaire is he's like, him and Rousseau, obviously, are some of the main philosophers of the Revolution, which is obviously the big
But the people who really hate him are like pretty left, like kind of like woke left.
Oh, so he's a white male. Maybe that's
it's more that kind of vibe that they don't like about him. So you want to read some Rousseau, huh?
Yeah, well, I had forgotten that I bought it a while back, and when I was traveling back, I put it in my backpack. So I also have it, so it would be easy. But, it might be kind of interesting, though. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess let's, what direction do we want to go in? Because actually, reading the Emerson, there's a bunch of like early American philosophy we could try and get into.
True.
We could do like 70s social justice philosophy. We could do like Rousseau, like you're talking about. We could try and do more like 17th, 18th century foundational stuff. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, other than the medical pay one, I don't really have a strong opinion. I think
Blues People is a pretty neat book, but
yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, I could look. It's called Blues People.
Blues People, yeah.
Okay. We could do that.
It's like a black history through the blues.
No, that's cool.
The other thing I thought would be interesting would be the autobiography of Frederick Douglass.
Oh, yeah. I've read that, actually.
Yeah, me too. But
I guess, did we all read it in public school, maybe?
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while. All I remember is him getting in that 6-hour fight.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right. Well, because you wanted to diversify a little, too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Get away from the white men.
Yeah.
And Rousseau, kind of.
That was what my social justice warrior friend told me to do, at least. I don't really care. But yeah. We gotta do our truth. So in some ways I am kind of like whatever makes the most sense logically.
I feel like we're a little bit nowhere, so we can go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, okay, Blues People sounds good. Although...
Well, why don't we not do that for next week, though?
Yeah, I was going to say I need a second to order it and everything.
And with Thanksgiving, not a lot of reading time. So,
yes.
I would do another Emerson essay for one more week. His essay, History, sounded neat.
Yeah.
He has some thoughts on history, which might relate to Nietzsche a little bit.
Yeah, we could also do the Oversoul, but that might be more of the same kind of stuff. But that's his other big essay, popular one.
Okay.
The existence and nature of the human soul, the relationship between the soul and the personal ego, the relationship of one human soul to another, the relationship of the human soul to God. So I don't know. I mean,
or
I don't know.
Here's another idea that whenever we can't think of what to do, our punishment is that we have to read another chapter of the Das Kapital.
Yeah. Well, I'm fine with that. I won't. Yeah, but I should have time to read. I've come back Friday, but we won't record until Wednesday. Let's do a chapter of the social contract. Are you okay with that?
The social contract? Okay, sure.
I don't know. I mean,
you don't know?
Now I feel like I'm steel arming you a little bit.
No, I don't care.
Or strong arming. Both by protecting a man from anarchic invasions of his liberty.
Nice.
Yeah, we could read just like the intro and maybe.
Yeah. That's the only good part of these books anyway.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I guess as much. Yeah, let's just read the intro. It's like 50 pages.
Okay.
40 pages.
Sounds good. Do we know anybody else who's written any books?
Yeah, it's a good question. That was fun.
I got to reach out to those people. I have a few people or at least one person.
Oh, from Reddit.
Yeah, the case for whatever.
What was it again?
Like secession or something like that. National divorce.
That's right. Yeah. We should. Yeah. Let's look into that guy's thing because he wrote something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's look at it before we ask him to come on.
I mean, we know what it is.
Do we?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
But
I don't know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that would be fun, actually. And that would be kind of an interesting direction. I don't know of how many podcasts do that kind of thing. Interview people from Reddit.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to say we could pick, like small podcasts, and if any of them wrote books, read their book and have them on. Mm-hmm. Try and expand our circle, but...
It's true. But not too big.
We need to get on other podcasts. That's really what has to happen.
Yeah. I don't want to go on other podcasts.
Okay. Well,
I mean, you should go in.
No. I mean, we should do it together.
Fine.
I mean, that was definitely the best way of expanding, at least from what I've heard.
Yeah.
Expanding your podcast circle.
Yeah. We don't want.
We don't want too many listeners.
Well, no, we don't. I mean, because then all this responsibility comes in.
You'll start deleting episodes left and right.
Yeah. No, the first one will be the Nietzsche episodes, probably.
Wait,
those
why?
First 3 Nietzsche episodes. Oh, mostly just because I feel like I look like an idiot.
Oh, well, me too. It's fine.
That's true. Solidarity, brother.
Yeah.
Well.
All right, so we're going to read some Rousseau next week.
I think
Email us. Just to say hi. Just chit-chat. Come on.
We know you're out there. We see you.
We see you.
And we hear you.
Yeah, right. All right.
See ya.
Bye-bye.